might be after where I start the podcast recording at.
I'm crying. Don't put that big claim out there. I don't need nobody on my head.
All right, deal. I'll start it right when you said don't put that out there so people feel like they missed out on something. How about that?
That'll be hella funny. But well, I gotta say it again though. That way you can cut it out because we're talking about doing it. Okay. Don't put that out there. I don't need nobody coming for my head.
I feel like I'm gonna leave all that in there. I don't care. I think it's funnier when people I think it's funniest when people obviously know that they missed out on something and then they hear that we're intentionally making them miss out on something.
They'd be like, what was y'all talking about? Well, exactly. Y'all never know. I'm sorry. Sorry to you.
Sorry to you.
To you, big dog.
Hey, those who know, know. Those who don't.
If but, you know, you know.
We might have been talking about how Lynette put some nasty stuff on the timeline with cow boogers and whatnot.
That was you. First of all, let's start there. So as this podcast goes, Kyler responded to a tweet that turned out it happened to be cow boogers. I thought it was like an infection and it was like full of pus, whatever. But my friend who knows about animals was telling me that it was just boogers. But regardless, Kyler responded to the tweet. I responded to Kyler and I was like, what the hell? Everybody got on my head. Like because the fact is, regardless if I had responded or not, it would have been on everybody's timeline because of Kyler. Because everybody that responded followed you already. But it's okay. It's okay. Because I took the heat. It's fine. Whatever. All I know is it was you at the core of it. And everybody turned on me.
No, that's not how the algorithm works. The algorithm saw you stick your nose in people's business and was like,
you stuck your nose in the business first.
It's my friend I responded.
I got put on my timeline. On your accord. Had you not responded, I would have never, because literally what I saw first was the tweet, because you know how Twitter be now. I saw the tweet before I even saw your response. And then I realized, I was like, how the hell is this on my timeline? I scroll down, I see your response. My first thought is, what the hell wrong with you?
And I was trying to see what's wrong with my friend. But nevertheless, it brought us here today for this very cordial conversation between two friends. Look at the smiles of the friends.
Oh yeah, it's never bad blood.
Never bad blood, but people have already got the inside scoop before we even told them who you are. So why don't I give you the mic real quick, just so you can introduce yourself to folks, let the people know who they're listening to, and we'll take it from there.
Oh goodness, my name is Tenomewah Murray, but you can call me Lynette. Well, not you, but everybody else, because they don't know me like that. But yes, Tenomewah Murray. I go by Lynette. What do you want to know about me? Like where I'm from, all that good stuff.
Yeah, let's get started there. Let's talk about where you're from. I mean, obviously, I know where you're from, and I know that you're a proud representative of where you're from. But give people the full story about where you're from, and we'll kind of lead that into how did that shape who you have become today.
So as Kyler has said, I am a proud person from Oakland, California. I am a proud Bay Area. I can't say resident because I don't live there right now, but that is what I consider like being where I was raised. I lived in like 6 states and I was actually born in Atlanta, but I know nothing about Atlanta because I left when I was like 2 or 3. But Oakland is where I experienced like all of like most of my stability, most of like the things that cultured who I am, where I grew up, and just Oakland is what made me me. And I feel like San Diego like helped me like refine that like when I went away to school. So yeah, Oakland, California. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? You feel me? I'm very obnoxious with it. And I think I've been obnoxious with it from the jump. And honestly, I'm proudly obnoxious with it. I don't really care about it. Yeah. From the town. Feel me? Funk town, little funk town, baby.
Are you done?
Yes.
No, I feel like that's the thing about Bay Area folks that I've come to love. Like it'd be a little bit of sarcastic love sometimes, but y'all are very obnoxious about where y'all are from and very proud of how obnoxious that of y'all are of where y'all are from. And I've grown to respect it because it's like at least y'all know. Because I think when I first started meeting people from the Bay, I was like, all right, y'all calm down. Like you from Oakland, whatever. Like
Yeah. I
we
mean,
not
the
in
thing
Oakland
is,
right now.
people don't seem to like realize that we really are like our own little microcosm. Like we listen to Bay music, pay attention to Bay. Like it's just we're in our own little bubble. And so when we come out, we just like, yeah, I'm from the Bay, you feel me? Like, this I don't know. It's just yes, probably obnoxious about it. But the thing is, I don't think we see it as being obnoxious because everybody just has like that hyphy energy like all the time. And so like when we go other places, I think if you're not used to it, you're like, okay. But it's just like, okay, okay.
No, I honestly wish more people repped where they from a little stronger, regardless of it, how well known your place is, regardless of like what the culture is like there. Like I love like just hearing people rep where they're from, which is why I always start the podcast asking people where they're from. And I think part of it stems from like just going to college and meeting people from so many places, because especially people that live in Southern California, I would meet people and I'd be like, "Oh, where you from?" They'd be like, "LA." I was like, "Oh, dope, me too. What part?" And they'd be like, "Oh, well, I'm actually from the San Fernando Valley." I'm like, "No, rep where are you from? Don't try to be from the next biggest thing. Like rep where are you from?" And I know people from the Bay Area have a similar level of respect for where people are from, because it's like, "Nah, are you from the East Bay? You from Oakland? You from Hayward? You from Richmond?" Or are
Yeah.
you from like Santa Cruz and trying
Or
to
are
tap
you
onto the Bay?
from Concord? Are you from Walnut Creek? Like, is that where? Are you from San Ramon, Dublin? It's okay to be from there too.
I just want everybody to understand how much you just shaded those three cities by
I'm
how
not.
you say
I'm
things.
not even. It's not shade at all. Like it's still the. Hey, the BART touches it. I guess that's the Bay. I mean, that's how we have to move around some of these cities. I could shade some cities, but I'm not about to do that. I'm not about to do that on this podcast.
I don't know. I feel like you're, because the way you say, "Are you from Concord?" I don't know. I feel like there's a little some.
It's
I feel like
still the
there's a little
Bay.
something there.
No, it's definitely that's definitely the Bay Area. There's other cities that are debatable, but I don't want to start that dialogue before people come for my head because I'm gonna stand tall. I'm gonna stand strong in my opinions on it. But I have friends from said cities, so when they be like, "Oh yeah, I'm from the Bay Area," they say Bay Area to people. I'm just like,
The laugh. I think that I think you're the third person I've had on this podcast from the Bay Area, and each conversation I start getting into like the demographic, or not the demographics, but the borders of the Bay, because I feel like there's people who claim areas where they're not from, and I have friends that are from, let's say they're from Northern California, and they say they're from the Bay, and I feel like I know enough of the Bay to sometimes I'd be questioning them, but it's not my
what
place to
cities are we
question.
talking?
So I'll ask you the question too. This will be, and I guarantee it's going to be 3 for 3. So if someone says that they are from Santa Cruz, California, are they from the Bay Area?
No,
Final answer.
either is San Jose. I'm sorry.
Ooh, the
San
San
Jose.
Jose.
San Jose is not the Bay. They are. They have gotten or are getting BART. I don't even know if it's been finished yet. But just because they're getting BART doesn't like. No, they were never the Bay. And I'm sorry to San Jose folks. Love y'all. Die for y'all. Y'all embrace Bay culture, and by default, I have to say you're the Bay now because BART, whatever. But no, the answer is no.
Hey, I low key feel that way too, but I think that I'm gonna lead the San Jose conversation to y'all that are actually from the Bay Area. But the Santa Cruz one, I couldn't let slide because I'm like, you're in the Monterey Bay Area.
Like, like, do you know how far Monterey Bay is from? Okay, the answer is no.
See, we're 3 for 3. My friend who's from Santa Cruz is gonna hate me because she swears that she's from the Bay, and I'll be telling her like, nah, like I know people from the Bay. You're not from the Bay, and that's okay. Santa Cruz is cool. They got the
They're
little
dope. They're
boardwalk.
just not the Bay Area.
Yeah, it's all it's
It's a
all good.
general vicinity. Like the Bay Area cities, you should probably be able to all reach within about an hour or so, or less, unless traffic's bad.
Unless traffic's bad, but let's transition out of the Bay Area and talk about your transition to San Diego. I know that San Diego is a city that you grew to love, and you are actually, I think you're the first person I'm interviewing on this podcast who went to UCSD, but as a transfer student. So, why don't you talk to our audience a little bit about that transition or that journey from the Bay Area to UC San Diego?
Right. So I spent 2.5 years at community college. I went to uh, Diablo Valley College, which is in like right Pleasant Hill, Concord. Um, and I transferred to UCSD with an associate's in poli sci. Then when I got to UCSD, I was focusing my bachelor's on international relations with political science with a concentration in international relations. Picked up a couple minors, African American studies and critical gender studies. Then decided I was going to double major in communications. Dropped the double major because I needed to get on out. And finished with poli sci and my two minors. So that was my transition to UCSD. Honestly, I feel like my journey of school has kind of been like my way out of like toxic situations in life or like toxic homes and UCSD, like being in a city where I didn't have any family. All of my family was in the Bay or further down in LA. And I essentially was just on campus like doing things by myself, and figuring it out and navigating and trying to like get out of a very like controlled and sheltered in the sense that like the parent that I have had just made it really difficult living. So I had to get out in order to essentially survive. Um which is funny enough because that also plays into shadow work, like my mental health and all how all of that played in as well. So before I actually came to school, I was diagnosed with clinical depression and anxiety and all of that, and I think all of that definitely played into like my academics from community college all the way throughout UCSD up until probably day of graduation, if we're being honest. um, and a lot of that just kind of was also why I chose UCSD. Was one, I needed to get away from the Bay Area, but I didn't want to leave California. And I wanted to be near a beach because I love the beach. And I wanted to go to a school that had a great like political science international relations program. Funny enough, I ended up like hating my major like after I transferred just because of like the time period that we were in and like the political sphere that we were in, and I just got
Mhm.
so drained that I was
Mhm.
like, this, I don't know how much this is for me. But yeah, I got to UCSD, didn't like it, not gonna lie, did not like it from the jump. And like first quarter, I was like, why am I here? Shout out to my peer guidance leader at the time, who or my mentor, who was Kiana. Shout out to her,
Mm.
love her. And I think if it hadn't have been for her, I probably would have like left, something like that. Um, but once I was able to like integrate myself into like the Black community and I started getting involved and doing things, like I took off. I became an intern at the BRC at some point. I became a transfer housing RA. Then in my final year, I got to be the Black housing RA, which was so rewarding because if anybody knew me on campus, if there's one thing that I loved and that I cared about, it was about being Black, especially being a Thurgood Marshall student, being a scholar,
Whoop.
a citizen. All I cared about was the niggas. Can I say that?
Yes, you can
All I
say
cared
that.
about was the niggas. Okay, that was my focus. My focus was Black people. And if you don't know about UCSD is, people don't know, people don't recognize, put some respect on it. Like if you're looking for a school with activism, you're looking for a school for people that don't just talk the talk, walk the walk, UCSD is the place to go. You're welcome other UCs for having a BRC, because if it wasn't for us, I don't really know. Can't, I'm trying to toot our own horn a little bit, but you feel me? So, yeah, it's a little bit about me and my relationship with UCSD. My relationship with UCSD definitely was like a love hate one because there were so many things that, we could speak on that were negative, but I think with our community, with the passion that
Mhm.
each of us carried in ourselves and, the things that we put on for ourselves, whether it was flexing or whether it was overnight, we did so much to create a community and make people feel welcomed. And I knew that how I felt when I first got there. I wanted nobody to feel like that, especially Black students. And so I would go on tours. I would go on the college tours with like the regular ones, and I would like start snatching Black kids. Like, hey, I'll give you a real tour from like the Black perspective. That's actually how I got somebody to commit. And when on
Wow.
graduation day, they were like, because we graduated at the same time. That we graduated at the same time, and on graduation day, they were like, I committed here because of you, right? And I was like,
Mm,
me. So, my goal at UCSD was to not dominate, but leave a little mark. And I think
talk your talk.
I think I was able to do that a little bit. I think I was able to touch some people. And one of my favorite accomplishments is reactivating the Psi Kappa chapter of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. Okay, baby Ace. Okay, okay. So that was really exciting. And like my chapter is like citywide. So to be the first Zeta at UCSD, I'm a part of that chapter that is in San Diego, I think was great. So I feel like I did what I had to do at UCSD. I feel like I had my fun. I feel like I had my hard days. I think we all had our laughs and our cries and all of that. And again, everything shaped me, my writing, my book,
Mm,
experiences that I've had, the people that I've encountered. And yeah, I think a lot of poetry was written late nights on that, like I like to
straight
call it
up.
Titanic, like that pier. Um, not by scripts. Like, so like in front of the village, if you walk directly down like that road, like
Glider port.
that hill, glider to get to Gliderport, there's like that little where the lifeguard sits. I can guarantee you many a poem was written there on many high nights or sad nights, or just nights where I needed to get a break from campus, or right along Torrey Pines, um, where you can like drive up and park. I think a lot
Hmm.
of poetry was written there, and on top of like the rooftops in the village, and
Yep.
just wow, I'm reminiscing, and I feel like I miss campus so much. Like
Mm.
I miss running into the niggas. I miss being like not being the one in like 300, but I miss like walking out of that class feeling like drained from being the one in 300, and somehow running into somebody Black, or knowing that I can shoot my way to the BRC and I'm guaranteed to see somebody that looks like me. So yeah, I feel like I just ran on a whole little rant about UCSD, but I
Nah.
honestly genuinely loved my experience despite negativity and things that happened along the way.
And I think that is the most important type of synopsis of the college experience, especially a school like UC San Diego. Because when I used to work in admissions and I would talk to prospective Black students and they would ask about like what life was like at UCSD, like I gave them as honest of an answer that I could. It's like, yeah, like, am I going to sit here and say that the UCSD experience was this glorious, perfect, like, yes, like I'm here type of experience? Not necessarily, but were there honestly days that I look back and like, nah, these was the best days of my life so far? Like, absolutely. I think that you touched on the community aspect. You talked about like just what a top of the line school is, making an impact. And I think that's something that I really, part of the reasons why I even wanted to do this podcast and talk to people who went to UCSD is because we did a lot. Like when you talked about like, oh, like
So
activism,
much, so
impact,
much.
like there's so much that we do and did on campus as leaders. And I think that just giving ourselves the space to kind of pat ourselves on the back, toot our own horn a little bit is important because like, do I think we need to start a UC civil war on this podcast and talk about like which UC is the most active? I don't know if we want. I mean, we
No,
could
we don't
take
have
the
to do none of
smoke.
that. We don't have to do none of that, because we don't have to do none of that. We don't have to do none of that. All I know is, yeah.
All you know is
who,
yeah, but
who got the Thurgood Marshall College? That's all I want to say. That's all I want to say. As you can see, I don't know if you can see my background. That's Angela Davis, alum, UCSD alum. I don't know if anybody else can toot their horn like that, but
and I think the biggest flex of all is we have all of that because I know like folks from like UC Santa Cruz want to also lay claim to Angela and whatnot. But it's like you combine that and then you just walk off of campus a little bit and then the Pacific's right there.
right, Okay. Okay. Like it took me nothing but 10 minutes or less to get down to the ocean. Oh my gosh, I miss it. And I'm gonna be back. Okay. I will actually be there in June, so I'm really excited. But to live like San Diego's obviously like where I want to settle. Like I feel like it's where I felt the most comfortable community wise, or it's where I felt the most happy and safe and loved environmentally as well. I currently live in Texas, so very very big culture difference. Um, and we'll leave that at that. Y'all already know how Texas operates, but yeah. So I definitely feel like at some point I will be making my way back west, but permanently in life, I definitely think San Diego is where I want to call home. That's where like my chapter is, and the grad chapter that I want to be a part of like permanently. And yeah, I want to raise little beach babies. You know what I'm
Little
saying?
beach
Little beach
babies.
babies. If that ever happens in my, in my lifetime, I'm not planning for kids for like a decade, but if we get there, I'm gonna have little babies with toes in the sand because I can do that. So that's my goals.
And your whole maternity shoot gonna be at La Jolla Shores.
Okay. Lauren Shores is so beautiful, actually, and like I wish people like everybody has an experience to, like at least visit San Diego. Like I talk to people at work, like, oh, I've never been. I'm like, you should go, but like the
Yeah.
skyline of it is really beautiful at night when all like people all
Hmm.
the lights are on, and even when like light pollution, and you can kind of see it's like kind of a little like if the moon's like if it's like a new moon is when like there's no moon, right? Yeah, I think so. um like you can it's just beautiful. Or right at the beginning of the pandemic, because nobody was swimming, like the ocean started coming back to itself, and things that hadn't been in the ocean for like a decade, at least on our shores, came back, and then bioluminescence happened, and I saw that,
Hmm.
and I was like, oh my god. And on top of that, if you just need a reason to go, Alicia Keys' house is literally down the street from UCSD. You could drive by it. Quite frankly, I knew a girl who like went running, and she saw her one day, but the thing was the
Wow.
girl was white and didn't really like.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? She goes, "Oh, I met her," and I was like, "All the niggas that are at UCSD, and you met Alicia Keys on a morning run, girl, please, that's not fair."
That's
But you
not
think
fair at
Alicia
all.
would have came and stopped by at least once, like, "Hey, what's up?" You know what I'm saying? Gave us a little private show. Ain't never did.
Something. I used to ask that about a lot of the celebs because it'd be so many people with money that just be in La Jolla. So Alicia, like Swizz, it's like, dang, y'all can't stop by to BRC real quick.
Like,
LeBron was on our campus once. Chris Paul hold his camp there. Like, yo, I remember my second year. I
I
think I
heard MJ
tweeted.
Rodriguez came, and I'm like, I missed that day. I
I
missed the
literally, I literally tweeted at Chris Paul. I was like, hey, bro, like stop by the Black Resource Center before you leave or something. Just real quick. Ain't nobody
day.
got to know.
They don't care. They don't know. They not paying attention. They need to pay attention though, because the way we ride for them. Okay.
The way
Okay.
we ride for them. The ocean has come up a lot in our conversation so far, and we also talked a little bit about Texas. So I want to get to a little bit about Texas. We ain't gonna talk about Texas too much on this podcast. But first, I want to talk about your relationship with water and the ocean, because if there's anyone I know that loves them some ocean, it's you. Like literally every time I go to the beach, and like I gotta send the homie a quick little snippet of the ocean. So why don't you talk about what just the beach, the ocean, water, and all that means for you?
Definitely. First and foremost, thank you, because that is like a love language for me. Like when my friends send me videos of the ocean because I can't be there anymore. Um, yeah. So I have loved mermaids since I was a little girl. And do I believe they exist? Yes. Yes, I do. Nobody can convince me they don't. But I am Liberian, Nigerian, and Sierra Leonean, and like I think a general term for like mermaids, I want to say on like the West African like coast is mami wata, just because I've heard it
Mm.
like from different cultures around the West Coast, and that's if you look at like my social media, that's all it is. It's baby mommy wata. And like some of my friends call me mommy wata just because like I feel like super connected to mermaids and I love the ocean. And I think when I think of the ocean, I like to use it as like a way to also like measure my mental health and like use it as a descriptor for people, I think it's kind of like the easiest way to explain things sometimes, because I feel like everybody has a general idea of water, whether you have a fear of it or you love the water, and whether you like to go swimming in a pool or you like to be in the ocean. I think you have a general understanding of the different feelings of floating, of what drowning might be like, of trying to tread water, of not being able to swim. Um, so I think the ocean allows me to have a common language with people when it comes to talking about like my mental health. And I think like a lot of that symbolism is also like in shadow work as well. And I just have always felt comfortable around the water. I grew up going to beaches like with my dad, and he enrolled me and my brother in swim lessons when I was a child, so I learned how to like swim really early, and we would do things like fly kites on the beach, or it was a part of like the things that made me happy as a kid. And I think I just associate the ocean and water with like those peaceful happy moments as well. But I think like when I think of it in like terms of my mental health, I can like compare the really, really bad days or dark days to what drowning could feel like, or the days that I feel like empty or numb to being like I'm just treading water. I'm just,
Mm.
you know, I'm not really floating because I'm struggling to float. But then I think the thing, see, the best days as floating in shallow water because you don't really have to put much effort in, you know, or playing right along the shore, like in the sand and just feeling like that bliss. And I think when I see visually that in my head, I think of like happy moments as like a baby experiencing sand for the first time, or kids building a sand castle, or friends burying each other up to the neck and having like the water rush over them, or people that don't really know how to swim or be in the water like being able to still engage with it. And so that's like kind of like what I see with that. Or, you know, even when I think of like trying to like return to myself, I think about how the body is mostly water, you know what I'm saying? And I feel like when I put myself in the ocean, that's like super connecting me to it, because here I am allowing whatever I'm feeling to essentially be washed away anytime I'm in the water. So yeah, I love the ocean.
That was so beautiful. You're such a poet. Um, Nah, just as you were saying, I was like, "Oh no, this is for sure the clip that's going to get cut for the podcast." Because like just the way you talk about like the ocean making happy as a kid, and specifically like as a common language with people, I think that's such a beautiful way to talk about the ocean. Because I think that anytime that I'm like talking with somebody, or like me and one of my friends, we have like one-to-ones overlooking Scripps Beach, and it was just like we're watching the sunset and just connecting with the ocean as a centerpiece. And what a magnificent like just body. And yeah, I love the ocean too, so that was really amazing hearing you
And
talk about how
the
much
thing
you
is,
love
like,
it.
I grew up going to the Alameda Beach, and if y'all know anything about the Alameda Beach, it is not the best beach. It is not the best beach, but you know what? I loved it. I loved it. I loved it so much. Not the best beach, but I loved it. And I loved going, my dad when I was younger took us to like Alcatraz before, and all of
Mm.
that was so cool to me. Like, oh man, I love the bay. I love the water. I love being surrounded by water. Yeah, man. If I could like build a house in the middle of the ocean that would not like be shaken by the waves, like I could get like steel poles all the way deep down, or if I could like build an underwater like kingdom where I could live and like I had like constant airflow to the top, you'd never see me again. Where's Lynette? Bottom of the ocean.
Okay, Queen of Atlantis.
Okay, that's my goal.
You over here trying to be neighbors with Namor and shit. That's dope.
That's exactly what I'm trying to do. Also love that movie.
I'm about to say, I thought I saw you in the background of Wakanda
Can you
Forever
guess
movie.
who my favorite Disney princess is aside from Tiana? Because Tiana's black, so she's automatically. But can you guess before Tiana who my favorite was?
Let's see, who might it be? I'm gonna guess Cinderella.
Ariel.
I'm just kidding,
What
though.
is that? Are you kidding? Why would you say that? We just had a whole conversation. about mermaids and why I believe I am one at my core.
The look of disgust when I said
I was like,
Cinderella
Cinderella,
was
Cinderella, a Cinderella, her. Unless we're talking about Brandy's, no.
uh good old Cinderella. So I know that it must have been like really magical for you, that first trailer of The Little Mermaid and seeing like Halle as the
I
mermaid in
think
the
I
movie.
cried, or I think I teared up. I think I did. I'm a little disappointed in the current hair that they're doing for her, just because I feel like she could have just like worn the locks. But I still love, still my Disney princess, regardless. But I'm still very excited about it. I'm gonna be in there. I'm gonna watch it. I don't like going to the movie theaters a lot these days, but I'm gonna be there day of. Best believe that. I also
I
need to
think
see, but that's neither here nor there.
I think the people need to know, do you already have your makeup face planned for when you go see The Little Mermaid?
I don't, and I didn't plan on it, honestly, but I should plan like a mermaid theme look, huh? That'd be a good idea.
I expect nothing less from you, honestly.
I think I might. That's a good idea. I'm gonna make note of that. For anybody that doesn't know, I'm a makeup artist, which is why he brought that up. So,
All right, so not to transition too roughly from the ocean to Texas, but I did have on this list to talk a little bit about kind of moving to Texas and just what that experience is like. Like, of course, you mentioned growing up, like you lived in a couple of different states, but following college and this UCSD experience, you moved to where are you? Austin, San Antonio? I forget.
I live in the DFW area. I currently live in
Dallas, Fort
Fort Worth.
Worth.
Dallas should be my next move, honestly. It's relatively close. But yeah, funny enough, I lived in Texas as a child. I lived here for about 3 or 4 years as a child. Hated it. Texas is where I experienced like my first racisms, and I experienced them as a child. Um, and I think a lot of like my childhood trauma was also very much connected to um, Texas, just like based on like my home life as well. So coming back here for me was honestly like the last thing I wanted to do.
Mm,
I moved here the day after graduation because it was almost like a last minute plan. Like I started planning around like a month or so to move here because my goal was to be in San Diego. But
mhm,
ultimately, I knew I didn't want to have a roommate. And I knew that it was also just too expensive because I didn't have a job right out of college. And obviously, California is expensive. But I knew that I was coming to Texas to be around family, and that when I was ready to get on my own 2 feet, it was probably going to be an easier transition, just affordability wise. So that's exactly what happened. The first years, honestly, it was kind of rocky. Um, if you know me, you know I had a pet, an ESA, not a pet. He was my emotional support animal, Obsidian, and I raised him from 8 weeks old. Within the first year, Sid got eaten by predatory birds. R.I.P. Sid. I was distraught, heartbroken. But I also got my first career job within that first year as well, and moved into my an apartment, bought a car, got rid of that car, and now here we are, like stepping into my independence and growing, and trying to navigate the things that happen here in Texas, from politics to bodily autonomy to just trying to figure it out, navigate, and just also just trying to adjust to the environment. It's very different environmentally, like
mhm.
landscape wise. You're not going to see like mountains and palm trees and lakes and water, and just have access to all those things. And at least in my area. But I visited Austin, and I love Austin. I think Austin is probably like the closest feel to California that I've had
Mm.
thus far. There's Lake Travis, and there's a bunch of like mountain ranges that you can go hiking at, and just the vibe there I think is more California for me. And I think maybe if I like had to stay in Texas, I think Austin would be like where I would be long term. I'm trying to give myself like a 5 year cap here, to try to figure it out. Like at some point, I'm either gonna move closer west or back to California. Either way, I want to be close enough to where like I can access California as easily as possible. So yeah, my best friend lives in Vegas, so I was considering that as well too, and I think
Mm,
that that would be nice because it's nothing but like a 5 hour drive or so. It's a SD.
yeah.
Pop it for a weekend, say hello. Yeah, so it's been an interesting year. In the time that I've been here, Uvalde happened, and that was very sad, and heartbreaking. And at the time, I was in a home with like a bunch of children, so I felt very shaken by that. And as y'all know, it's all happening in like politics and stuff. I think everybody's pretty focused these days. Um, Texas is, I don't want to say a scary place to be, but I do know that like it's not my favorite place to be, especially knowing that like things are accessible that should not be accessible, i.e., guns, and things that should be accessible are not, i.e., abortion. So it's like here or there. I'm not trying to get too political. I know that's my degree, so I have a really bad habit of spiraling. So I'm just gonna leave it there. But I work from home, so I don't really have to like go out and interact with
Mm.
people hella. And I have a couple of friends that I like to hang out with, and I do spend a lot of time alone because I like my alone time. But yeah, I'm making the most out of it. Um, I'm getting connected, trying to get connected with like my sorority out here, and I've gotten to do a little bit of Greek things out here, so that's been nice. But yeah, yeah. And I also visited Houston. I was considering Houston too. I like Houston. I think Houston was a vibe. There's a lot of black people there, and I was like,
Hmm.
that or Austin, one of these two for a long term stay. So yeah, Texas, Texas, Texas. It's not bad. And honestly, I think if the politics were different, I think it would be even better, truly. And
Mm.
the crazy thing is, a lot of people that live here feel the same way, but obviously, a lot of people that live here don't. So,
A majority. Uh,
yeah.
but I think that the reason why I wanted to just give you space to talk about Texas, and you can get as political as you want when you talk about whatever you want, because I think that part of people telling their stories is just talking about like where they're living, the environments that they're in, because all of that shapes who we are. I think that's like one of the beautiful things about being artists, because I think artists just see a lot of these connective tissues and see the way that places and nature can impact people. That's why like I'm interested in like screenwriting and film and stuff, because even just thinking about like your love for mermaids, like how impactful that is to have like a black woman being in a position that of being like a mermaid that you love so much, and just
Right.
representation and all of that is just so important. So yeah, thank you for sharing about that journey to Texas. Now the topic that the people are waiting for, want to transition to talk about poetry. You are the first poet outside of myself to make an appearance on the banquet hall, so you are the banquet hall's house poet, the first lady poet of the banquet hall. I like the little dance, little victory dance
Nobody
you're
can
doing.
see this. If you're listening to this and you're not watching it, you can't see, but I'm really gigging right now. Okay.
She is. That's why you got to hop on over to YouTube, check out the video, or if you're on Spotify, you can check out the video and see the little dance. And we're gonna have the Lynette dance challenge at the end of this episode.
I'm bringing it around, yeah. Bring it back
Not to
around.
bring it around town.
Bring
Um,
the fingers up.
but one of the most important things I want to talk to you about on this podcast is shadow work. I have my copy right here for the camera.
Yeah,
Such a powerful.
mine is it's been marked up clearly. It's gone through the ringer.
We love that though, but such a powerful book, and I want to get into that in a bit. But first, I wanted to put you on the spot. Do you remember how we crossed paths at UCSD?
Yes. Yes. Yes, I do.
What was it? What was the interaction? What is the first interaction you remember? Let's see if it's the first one I remember.
I think my very first interaction with you may have been in the BRC, right? But I think first interaction would have been the first flexing that was at the like underneath, that little room that had been underneath the BRC. It's not it's, it wasn't
Oh,
it's
the stage room.
the stage room, there was a flex and held in there one day, and I think that may have been our very first interaction.
It was at the BRC. It was actually, I think it was the orientation day or moving day or something, because you had mentioned looking. This is like your first day on campus, I think, but you had mentioned like wanting to like get involved in like poetry and just being really big
I
in
remember
poetry. And I was like,
Jovi and I had could like connected with Jovi and all of that, and then me and Jovi became this big poetry duo. Yeah,
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 that was the first
yeah.
day, and because you started at UCSD in 2017, 2018.
I graduated in 2017, fall 2017.
Yeah, so your first year at UCSD was right after I graduated, so I had just become a staff member. Because I remember I was like, "Dang, like I wish that I was still here as a student because we can like do this poetry thing."
Yeah.
But I remember like telling Javia, I was like, "Oh, like you definitely like got to connect with this person, like just show them what it is with
And
the
we
poetry
did.
stuff." And
And
y'all
we did.
did,
That's the homie. I love them so much.
y'all did that. And then I think our so that was the first time I remember meeting you. But our first interaction, I think you had, well, not first interaction, but I was helping you practice a poem at Muir Field.
Kyler, that was our first real interaction, I
Yep.
think. I think I had asked you for help to help me practice performing a piece that I hadn't performed at UCSD yet. Oh no, because I performed it at that flex and that was in the stage
Mhm.
room, but I needed to perform a shorter version of it. So
Mhm.
I had condensed it, but I needed to run it by somebody who knew poetry and was good at poetry. And Kyler, if y'all don't know, Kyler is like one of the co-founders of Fluxus. So I had to go to like the Poetry King on campus to ask for help. So I went to the Poetry King on campus and I was like, "Hey, what's up?" So we went into a field. And I think we had another friend there. We went into a field and Kyler drilled it into me. Logan, he was like, you messed up. Go back." And I was like, "All right, you're right." And honestly, it was he was like Coach Kyler for like my whole time there. Yeah, Kyler
Coach
was Coach
Kyler.
Kyler. Yeah. Like if I needed to practice, like it was running it by Kyler because hey, I
Not the
need
king of
to.
poetry on campus though. Like I don't think everybody's ever called me the king of poetry.
Yeah, but I'm calling you that now because I mean you did co-found Flexing. I'm saying.
Hey,
So
we did the thing,
I
but
mean, if y'all don't know, Kyler got like 6 books. I don't know. I don't know anybody else's. I only got one. Okay, I only got one. So
right, you only have one so far.
well, I'm gonna give you your flowers.
Okay, I'll take the flower. This episode's to give you your flowers
Thank
though.
you, but let's we don't respect royalty a little bit.
I appreciate the love. Let's start before we get into the actual shadow work piece itself. I want to talk through like just becoming a poet and like when did you don't necessarily have to say like when you first wrote a poem, but like what was the birth of the poet for you?
um, so this is gonna sound kind of morbid, but I started writing because as a kid, um how do I word this without making it sound so sad?
Make
Um
it sound how you want to sound. This is your story. Like
yeah, and I don't
however,
want it to sound so sad. But
yeah, however you want.
basically, my biological mom and I have had a very codependent relationship and it was extremely toxic. And anytime something would go wrong, whether I really did something wrong or whatever the case was, I had to apologize. But she does this thing where she doesn't talk to me for like 2 weeks to like 2 months. And we could be in a house full of people. She'll say hi to everybody and pass by me. So I had to start writing. I would like write her letters
Mm.
apologizing. Even if I didn't feel like I was wrong, I would write letters to apologize because at some point I started to feel like silenced. So whether or not I needed to talk to her. So um my dad had got me a journal as well and she opened it and she read it and I was so mad. So then I was like, I need to write my feelings, but like the funny thing is my biological mom's a poet. And
Mm.
so I figured maybe if I wrote how I felt about how things were between she and I, even as a kid, um, and I wrote them in poetry, maybe she would read that You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? And the crazy part was, I deliberately gave her that journal and she never read it. She never read the poetry pieces. So she wanted to go read my personal journal, but she didn't. So I was trying to figure out a way to have common language with her, and
Mm.
it didn't work. So um, I felt violated in my real journal, and I felt like I didn't really have a voice. Like growing up, and I have an older brother who, like, she would always take his side for things. So I always felt like it doesn't matter what I say, and I felt that the same way, like, I got to UCSC and I didn't want anybody to feel how I felt when I got there. I knew that I didn't want anybody else to feel silenced.
Mm.
So my big starting poetry, I think, was very not, I don't want to say rebellious, but like a lot of like revolutionary like feelings in there, and a lot of like um liberating type of feelings. I wrote a whole poem called the footnote to a caged bird by Maya Angelou.
Ooh.
Yeah, that one came out really good. I don't know where I'm gonna put that, but yeah, so I started writing things like that. I wrote this poem called Black Boy Fly based off of, you already know, Kendrick Lamar. And I had like written that about like my older brother, and I just started writing things that, because I felt like I needed to pour out all these things I was bottling up. Especially around the time where I started to really feel depressed, which was around 12. And when I told like my parents and my godmother, who is my maternal figure, really, um, she was the only one that really paid attention. And nobody listened. So, besides her. But I mean, as a godparent, there's only so much she could have done until, like, I got older, where she was allowed to really like, where she was able to really help me more because I could make my own decisions and things. So that's how I started writing, and I just got more into it. And then in high school, uh, once I left California for like my last year of high school to go take care of my grandmother on the East Coast. I moved to New Jersey at that time, so there goes my 1 year of being in Jersey. But I had also lived in like Pennsylvania and like in and out of New York as well too. So um, I went there, and the school that I went to had a poetry club, and
Mm.
that poetry club participated in competitions. And so I started competing with my poetry. First thing I did, I competed with Black Boy Fly, memorized it, and it was amazing. I came in like second place though, which wasn't bad, because like what I got as a gift should have been the first person's gift. Should have been first place
Mm.
for real. First place got like a signed book from one of the judges, and I got like a leather bound journal with a wooden. Well, I think I have the pen with this wooden pen that I can like refill, and it just twists out. So I've had this pen for probably over a decade now, and I still
Dang.
have the. I actually, give me 1 second. I'm gonna go get the journal. Woo! I got this journal as well, and it's honestly, yeah, like I don't think I'm ever gonna get rid of it. I had started like writing all like little words and
Oh
things
wow.
all over. If like anybody ever wants to like old school poetry from like me, yeah, that's in here. And I'm pretty sure the footnote to a caged bird is in here too. Yeah. So
Wow.
I spent a lot of time with this, and so I have no regrets coming in second place to her, because like I said, I think I got the best thing. And then from then
Yeah.
on, I got to compete in a poetry recitation competition where I recited Cage Bird. Funny enough, did not win, but it was still a lot of fun, and had it for it being my only for it being only my second competition. I think I did really well, and I think I memorized it really well, and I think I tried to convey my emotions the best as possible. But like, I have always had stage fright, so getting up there and doing it, I think probably showed a little bit at that time, and I think I've definitely done so much better now. I think I perform way better now. So
Wow.
yeah, that's how I started writing. And then I just kept going from there, and I started writing more performance pieces. I listened heavily to Kendrick Lamar, and I listened heavily to Tupac. Those are like all-time favorite rappers. Old Kendrick is all-time favorite rapper. I should say. Newer Kendrick, I'm kind of like still debating how I feel about it. Um, but I listen to a lot of old school hip hop as well too. I listen to a lot of like 90s hip hop as well, a lot of like 80s hip hop as well. I listen to a lot of I feel like my writing style was really cultured by the things like I would listen to like a Tribe Called Quest and to like Camp Lo and stuff and like the Fugees and like my nickname in my poetry club was Little Lauren because of that. So
Oh,
yeah,
old heads gonna love this episode, hearing that type of inspiration.
I know, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm low key an old head. The thing, like people, I know I look young to people. I look like a kid, low key, but like I'm pushing 30, y'all. I'm pushing 30. People don't. I was talking to this Uber driver, funny enough, coming home from the Smino and JID concert last month, and it was an older black guy, and I basically like for like that 45-minute ride ran through my he was not grilling me, but I think he was trying to see like what I really knew about music and what I really knew about
He
hip
hit you
hop.
with what you know about that, youngin.
Not necessarily like he was kind of trying he wanted me to put him on things like from today that I felt was like as good as stuff from like back
Mm.
then. So I went through like different playlists and at the end of that ride, like right when we got to my house, he was like, you know your stuff. And I was like, because I'm a connoisseur. Okay. Yeah, but I think my writing is heavily cultured by that. And then what else? I think I'm also like a super huge romantic, like hopeless romantic. And also hopelessly sad as well, thanks to depression. And I think um those feelings also all tie in like the things that I watched, like wanting to feel like comfort in comfort shows or watching like romance movies or watching things that were really sad and or listening to things that were even sad too. Like I still listen to things like alternative music and like rock and like all that stuff because like that was also a big part of my childhood. Like you put on some Fallout Boy, best believe I'm gonna rage. My Chemical Romance, oh baby, teenagers scared the living. Okay, yes, that's me. So a lot of my writing, I think, was also cultured by angsty teen,
Mm.
angsty teen that listens to like rock music and things. But like I combined it. But then at the same time, I also like played classical music. If so
I
many things
love it.
so many things happening here. And then when I got to community college, I met Dr. Terrence Elliott, who was like my father figure at school. He was so dope. He was a music professor, but he was also my humanities teacher. And he pushed me even further in my poetry. And I can tell you that if it was not for him, I probably one would not be here. And when I say be here, one, I mean alive. Two, would not have made it to UCSD. Three,
Mm.
would not be the poet that I am. Um, the main thing he taught in our humanities class was that humanities was the art of being human. And in this class, we are learning the art of being human. And um, he pushed us to be creative and to be ourselves and to tap into our humanity. And so there came a point where like I would just show up at his office and he would be like playing like piano probably on the other side. And whether I was in tears or I was laughing or I needed to come show him a piece, he would sit with me and we would run through the piece. And what's the piece? Unapologetically Black. He was the first person to hear that. He was the first person to hear it and to help me culture it to what it is today. He knew how he could hear the passion, he could hear the feeling, he could hear everything in it. And he pushed me and he pushed me and he pushed me to just be my best self, to write how I felt. He said to me, he said, you know, you belong in music. And I was like, you know, I can't sing, right? You know, I can't really, I haven't played no instruments in I don't know how long. I would love to pick back up. I was like, you could teach me how to replay the piano. He'd be like, you gotta lose your nails. And I was like, aha, psych. Psych. But then like, you know, I would like go to the studio with him on campus and like like with him. I would be in there with him and his students as they were like writing music and dropping beats, and he got me on one of the tracks. I'm not even gonna lie, he got me on the tracks one day, and I think, wow, I gotta send him this podcast when we're done, because like I genuinely love him so much. Like when I was leaving for UCSD, like he gave me a really big hug and I cried, and he's like, you know, you're one of my daughters, right? And I was like, yeah. And I just bawled. So yes, great, great man. Love him to death. He also got me like a journal that's like this big and that I started pouring into after I got it. So yeah, that's like how Tino started writing.
Wow, what an amazing origin story. So much came to mind as you were cooking, and I was just like, I can't even interrupt you to ask these guys. I just let you cook. That was beautiful. One, there's a couple things that stood out, and yeah. First, I think the title of this episode now has to be Shadow Work and the Art of Being Human. I had to write that down.
Oh, that's perfect, Kyler. What?
See, I'll be listening. And related to that, like for the list, my avid listeners know this and my friends know this, but like I think one of my new life goals is to write like I want to write an original Black superhero movie, but I just want to write like movies and film in general. And I'll let you know this today, if I ever write a movie that has a poet in it, they're based off of you. Like they have to be based off of you.
Give me the role, because I bet you I can act it.
Okay, sure. You could be the poet, but
act it too.
All right. Well, there you see. I was selling you short. Like if I ever write a movie, you're going to star as the
so
poet
much like character.
movie.
I really feel like if I wanted to be an actor for real, I could really do.
Absolutely.
I could really do that.
But I think I just really relate to a lot of just what you said about like becoming the writer that you are today, and kind of how really the purpose, not the purpose, but one of the big reasons why I wanted to talk to a poet and you on this podcast is just because all of these things lead into the poet being made. All of these things lead to the poem, they lead to the book. It's the music that you're listening to, it's the people that are impacting you, it's those experiences that you're having. And it's very interesting to me that you mentioned like Kendrick Lamar and Tupac, because I think those are definitely a lot of the people and artists that I think about and listen to when I'm trying to get in that writing spirit. I think especially after seeing the Tupac exhibit in LA, when I got to like see the poems that Tupac was writing, because I don't know what it is about Kendrick and poets.
I had to buy the book. I had to buy Tupac's poetry book. It only
have to. But I don't know what it is about Kendrick Lamar and poets, but I think there's like a spiritual universal connection between like poets and Kendrick Lamar, because I just, like you said, especially old Kendrick, there's something in them words.
When you think about like To Pimp a Butterfly, right? Or you think about Unmastered Untitled, or you think about like Section 8, like when you think about old Kendrick, right? And you listen to his like when the lyricism behind it, he's putting poetry over beats. If we're being for real, like he's really talking to the people. And what I think people, I'm so glad I chose Angela Davis for this background, because when I think of poets, the same way artists are supposed to be like the voice, like the like showing the emotions of the people through like the paintings and all that. I think poets, those speakers you hear, those people that are out there being the actual voice, I'm talking like yelling, you know what I'm saying? We quote speeches, okay? Speeches are damn near poetic monologues, okay? I think all of these people have, like, at their core is what poetry is, and it is the voice of the people, and hence, you know, my poetry collective, the Blue Poet Society, the whole objective is being the voices of the voiceless, right?
If I can interject real quick, it's like serendipitous that right before you said the voice of the people, I wrote, and you can even see it on the doc because you're on it now, but at the bottom of the doc, I wrote voice of the people at 3:24 p.m. because I needed to remember that to clip. Like I typed voice of the people, then you said voice of the people. So I love that.
I'm crying. Yeah, I feel like music in itself is finding a crafty, like when you read lyrics, if you just go on Genius and you read lyrics of like a quality song, not you know, we all got our turn up songs, you know what I'm saying, but if you go and you read somebody that like really puts their Smino, because he's my current favorite alive, okay, I've seen that man about 3 times. Smino is a genius if we're being for real, like the double entendres, the flow, the way he switches it up, like he's in a field of his own. And if you look at his writing, he'll say something, it'll take me a couple, I gotta play it back and be like, oh, that was so neat. How did he, you feel me? And I feel the same way when I hear a dope line in a poetry, in like somebody saying
Mm-hmm.
poetry. So yeah, definitely.
Man, I love this episode. But all of that being said, like, see, we ain't even talked about the book yet. That's what's just so powerful about poetry. But before, I know I keep saying before we get to shadow work, but you mentioned Blue Poet Society, and I wanted to give you like a little bit more space. I think that's when I interjected. So if there's anything else you want to talk about with Blue Poet Society and what that's meant for you as a poet.
Right. So Blue Poet Society was a poetry collective that I established in college. Has it done anything lately? No. But I think everybody that is essentially in the collective is doing their own thing and doing their own thing in like their best way possible. And I think the collective itself was more, so it was that, and then it was the Shades of Blue art like collective. It was supposed to be like an arts collective of everybody being a part of that. So I think that's more, if it was anything, if it was an entity still, that would be the focus of everybody's individual like crafts right now. But in college, that was me, Jovi, King James, okay, and it was a couple other people. And what my best friend who actually went to Davis at the time was in this poetry collective, and you know we would sign up for anything on campus and we would just do it. So we were at Flexing, we were speaking at, we were putting on for like open mics on campus, or if there was an event where like they needed like a poetry or something, like we were signing up. I believe me and Jovi had performed, we performed a piece for the 5-year anniversary of the BRC. So yeah, that's just what we did. And then like our Instagram page, like we would upload pieces and stuff like that. And I think it was just a nice way to just continue putting poetry out there and in the public. And yeah, I would love to reestablish that, and I would love to like kick it back off at some point. I think once I can really figure out a structure of what it should look like now that we're all, you know, out of college, and then also like trying to bring people in and stuff like that, and like actually make it like a thing, like a nice big thing where like we can put on things together. I think that would be really dope. I think that would be a dream of mine to like do like a poetry tour at some point with like the Blue Poet Society / Shades of Blue. So yeah, that would be dope.
Shout out to the Blue Poet Society.
They're Blue Poets, gang, whole lot of gang shit.
A whole lot of gang shit. But the moment that we've been alluding to, Shadow Work, this is a book that you released. What is this, going on a 3-year anniversary of Shadow Work, right?
Oh boy, I released Shadow Work December 21st, 2020. Yes. It has been a journey, and it's funny how Shadow Work actually came to be. Shadow Work wasn't Shadow Work until one night. So the poems in here I had been collecting, and honestly, some of them I think were in here too. And I think I had about anywhere from like 90, 70 to like 100, maybe 90 to 100, somewhere around there, poems or so that I didn't really have a plan with. But one day I had a really, really, really bad depressive episode, and I broke. I was in my little studio on campus, Black housing at the time, and I just broke down, like crying. I was crying so hard, just wanting all of those feelings to just stop, wanting the people around me, wanting the people that I loved, that I called friends, that I called family, to understand me, to try to understand what was going on in my head, how I was feeling, what depression really can do. Like, yes, people get sad, and yes, people have periods of being depressed, but when you are clinically depressed and you are kind of in a constant state of melancholy all the time, despite this laugh and big smile and all these engagements that I'm having with you, it's like every morning I have to force myself to be like, okay, today we are making a conscious decision, and no matter what happens, if things are coming at your way, like, we are going to try our best despite it, because there's this underlying, you know what I'm saying, sadness that's just always there. And there are times where, like, I feel completely empty and numb and disconnected and apathetic, and I feel nothing. And nobody could really get it. Nobody could relate because of how severe the things I'm experiencing was. Like, I'm constantly suicidal. That's like, this it doesn't feel good, you know? And I'm not anymore. I'm not anymore. Do I still experience like really deep depressive episodes? Yes, but I think the way I've like changed like my frame of mind is, I'm in a place where the dark is afraid of me. And that's the last poem in the book. Okay?
I
That's
got a
the last
bookmark.
poem in the book. The dark is afraid of me. You're going to be around here, right? But we're going to coexist. And in coexisting, I'm going to be in control. So that's essentially what shadow work became my journey of depression. And I separated it into 4 different stages, which are in the book. And that night that I broke down, something in me was just like, right. I pulled out my laptop and I hammed out that intro, like what's it called? The preface. I hammed out this, and it was, honestly, out of the entire book, the preface is my favorite thing. I feel like if anybody reads anything, I hope that they read that, because I feel like not only does it explain like what's like, it kind of sets you up for what the book is about, but I think it really does give an insight to me before you even get into the poetry, and it implores you as a reader to get it to think about these things as you read. Like, I pose questions about, why are we scared to face, like, the thing about shadow work is, like, you are facing all those negative things, negative feelings, whether it's negative feelings you feel about yourself, whether it's negative feelings that you're harboring, whether it's the darkness you put away because you don't want to associate with it. Like, it's a part of you. And in like the preface, I talk about, I am just as much my shadow as I am my light. And the crazy thing that we do with our shadow is, we don't love it. Our shadows follow us like they do on a nice sunny day. We don't give them time to be cared for. We don't embrace them. We don't give them space to be and exist. We don't validate those feelings. We tell ourselves we shouldn't feel these negative things. We tell ourselves that it's bad. We tell ourselves that we're bad if we feel these things. We tell ourselves that we are deserving of bad things happening to us because we feel these things. Or like, if I'm talking about my depression, it's like, I'm never gonna get better. Everything's gonna be shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. Or look at how my life has played out from the time that because the crazy thing is, literally from the time that I was conceived to now, my life has been rickety. Completely, like, complete turmoil, literally from the jump. Like, I almost died 5 times in the process of birth before we even talk about me growing up with like a really traumatic like childhood, and then you know, knowing that I felt depressed at 12 and not being able to get help until I was 20. You know what I'm saying? Like, there was just so many things that played into it that I feel like I didn't even know how to love my darkness. I didn't know how to care for her. I didn't know how to validate her. I didn't know how to be like, you are seen. You are valid. Everything that you feel, all those things that hurt, is valid. And you did not deserve it. And I love you regardless. And you know what? I'm going to help you get better. I'm going to help you understand it. And if nobody gets it, at least you put it out there and you get it. And I put this out there for myself, and I hoped that if anybody bought it and if anybody read it, that it would do something for them. And if it didn't, that they understood me a little better as well. So yeah, a little spiel about shadow work.
No notes. That's the podcast. Like, literally, I think you described shadow work perfectly. I think that you gave like such a powerful overview of it to people who haven't read it yet. And I think that folks listening to this are going to be moved just to buy it, just based off of how like I said, how intentional everything is with shadow work. And I remember, because as you were talking about the preface and how it's like, if you wanted anybody to read that, if you wanted anybody to read anything like that support, that you hope they read and that they understand. And as you were saying that, I was thinking about when I first read the preface and how like I literally I probably got like 60% through the preface and had to stop reading it because I was like so like reflective of like just the words that you were saying and just how impactful and how deep that shadow work gets. And so I wanted to like, I went back to our text thread while I was listening to you and was trying to find out when I first read it because I know I texted you, and I actually read it a month before it came out. And I forgot about this. You sent me the preface for
I gave you
feedback.
a manuscript for feedback.
And as I was like, damn, like we really go back like full flats
We
because
really
like
do. We're for lifers. We're for lifers, Kai.
it was literally November 21st, 2020, so a month before. And I'm like giving you feedback on it. Talked about how affirming it is, how inspiring it is. But more importantly, after I gave you that feedback, I also said that I needed to read those words right now and felt like I was in a similar position that you were kind of describing. So wow, just thinking back to 3 years, well, almost 3 years, but like I said, no notes for anything you just said about shadow work. I don't even know if I want to ask you any additional questions. I think that was
You're
such like
welcome to. I mean, if you have questions about anything specific, I don't know.
I mean, we're going to get into it because it's a podcast and this isn't just about me. And I need, like, of course, to do the podcast host thing. But I was like, nah, like literally everything that I wanted to hear you talk about, you said in that just little intro spiel about shadow work. So, as I was preparing for this podcast, I definitely wanted to just comb through shadow work again and just think through like some of the things that I want to ask and some of it that we already touched on. But as I just opened it up, I felt like every other page, I was like folding a little page at the corner, like, oh, I need to go back to this. I need to
Hey,
go
we're
back
gonna
to
have to
this.
start a, we're gonna have to start a poetry podcast at this point, so we could. First of all, we got 6 books. If we want to talk about pieces individually, we got to start our own poetry podcast.
Hey, you ain't said nothing but an idea as far as I'm concerned. Shit.
Okay, I know that's right.
But no, I think so. We basically starting an AP Lit podcast.
AP Lit, I'm crying. You know what's funny? I was never in AP Lit. I was very comfortable in regular lit.
But I feel like the stuff we gonna be on is advanced placement. That's all I'm saying.
I agree. I suggest y'all start sharpening up on y'all poetry skills, okay?
Sharpening up on the poetry skills, but let me just hit like how about I just give like a couple of thoughts on some things that I read and then we could just have the conversation go from there.
Hey.
And I think the first one that I folded the page on, it's all in my head. And you said, it's all in my head. They said, so I dipped my pen in cerebrospinal fluid and wrote it on my paper flesh. And I think that is like the perfect metaphor for what it even means to be a poet. And so, yeah, I just think that when I think about writing a book, I'm just curious about like, yeah, I think the question I want to ask you, because this is something that I think about a lot, what does it mean to have a book out in public? Like people can just, like you said, this is just like your inner thoughts on paper flesh, and now it's just on motherfuckers' bookshelves.
Well, that's a great question. I think the thought about having it out originally scared me because when you think about writing a book that's not like nonfiction in the sense that like you're writing about a specific topic, you're not, or because I also story write, like I have novels that I do like fiction writing. It's very different when you put out like a poetry book because I feel like poetry can be like the rawest of emotions. And I feel like the fact that I've literally peeled layers of my skin essentially, and that poem is in here. It's one of my old poems, right? I feel like I got to a point where I was like, nobody's silencing me anymore. The fact is, if I put it out there, who can silence me? Right? I'm owning every single, like the thing about, I took my voice and I said, I'm putting it out there and nobody can stop me. Right? Like you can't shut me up. And I think that in itself was an act of rebellion for me. Was you constantly telling me that my depression is in my head, that it's false, that it's that I am being dramatic, that it's mental illness, blah, you don't even really believe in it. So you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna put it out on paper and you can read it and accept it whether or not. But the thing is, this is my truth. And I'm putting it out there and I'm saying, this is me. You take me or you leave me, and it is what it is. And if you take it and not only do you see me, but you see yourself in it, then it's like, who are people to throw rocks at glass houses? If we're all low key connected, if we all kind of feel the same way, if we all kind of have a little something in us that needs to get out. And I think that's what you do when you put out like a poetry collection or a chapbook or a book. You are putting it out there and you're saying, I own how I feel.
This is me.
This is me. I own my mistakes, and you can judge me, you can do whatever, but it changes nothing. It's nothing. And you are free to cast a stone, but I guarantee you will probably find something in here that you might just relate to. So before you do that, before you make a judgment, and I guess more so at like a more holistic thing, before you make a judgment about somebody with mental illness, maybe reflect on yourself a bit, because you never know what you might have going on. I think everybody is a little fucked up along the way. So yeah, that's just kind of like my thoughts around when you put out a book. And I think specifically when you put out a poetry book, like you're putting out rawness, you're putting out your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions. You are essentially publishing your diary.
Yeah.
And
an analysis of your diary at that.
An analysis of my diary. Who is putting, you know what I'm saying? Like, I have a poem called Monsters of Monsters in Shadowwork. And if you look at the acronym, what does that spell? Mom.
Damn. I ain't even peep.
I think only 2 people noticed that it's essentially mom.
You a motherfucker, I'll tell you that.
Like, I'm literally if anybody wants to know why I feel a certain way about certain things, you probably might find the answer in shadow work. But I think you also might relate to it. You know what I'm saying? You know how many people go through things with stuff like parents who lost love or longing for love or rejection or wanting. I talk about dealing with meds in here. I talk about using my book as a rolling tray. Okay. Like, I talk about it's literally an analysis of my diary, of like my brain, of my thoughts to a certain extent. So
yeah, and I just look back at Monsters of Monsters and I'm just, wow, like the first line, the last line. Yeah. This is why when and this is gonna be my last poet PSA soapbox before we start kind of round out this episode. But when motherfuckers be like, oh, this book is $20, this book should be like $2,000 if we keeping it gangsta. Like, people, it's on page 25 if you're looking for it.
I found it.
These books are priceless because just the level of thought and intentionality to where all, like, just you naming that poem that and the meaning behind that, like the significance of it, for motherfuckers to think that it's just a title of a poem, like, nah, bro, like this, it goes deep. It goes deep.
Like, literally, I think people that write can do like analysis to really read between the lines. And I think like I want people to tap into themselves to be able to read between the lines, so I think everybody's capable of it. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Wow. Poets are such powerful people. I'm so happy that I asked you to be on this podcast and you're blessing us with your knowledge, your wisdom, which I think we start recording after this, but a lot of that wisdom's about to be removed from you because you get your wisdom teeth out. But
yeah, man.
I'm happy that we got the wisdom on the podcast before. It's like a time capsule of your wisdom before you get it removed next week.
Right? I'm gonna be 4 teeth dumber.
So okay, I'm 4 teeth dumber too, and I came out with books after I got my wisdom teeth out. So
Okay,
hey,
period. Maybe taking them out might boost my brain knowledge.
you never
I
literally.
got on book 2 at some point for real. I gotta get book 2 together.
Oh, don't worry, that's on the list to talk about.
I'm crying.
But it's funny that we talked about that because I didn't even intentionally think about this, but there's a poem in my book Obsidian about just that moment right before I got my wisdom teeth out, when I was looking at like my heartbeat monitor, and I was like, damn, this is like my first confirmation of my like heartbeat. And I was like, oh, let me write a poem about that.
Oh,
Right before going under for wisdom teeth.
I'm about to have my phone out there like, ooh, this is my heartbeat. Oh, stop. Kyler, don't inspire me. Don't inspire me.
Quick plug for shadow work. Where can folks find it if somebody's listening to this and they're like, oh, I want in on the club?
I would say Tenomewah.com, but not right now. The best place you can get it is Amazon.com, and honestly, Amazon's selling it for stupid cheap. So, hey, you might as well go get it while you can, because at some point, I'm gonna have Tenomewah.com back up, and it's gonna be $25 again, not like $5 or $6 that it is on Amazon right now. So
only $25.
Only $25.
It's a steal. Y'all heard the literary genius behind the book.
Get one for you and the homies. Your mama,
for you and the homies.
Your grandcitas, okay?
Yeah, and I mean, I think that it's only right, because if you're gonna be selling it for 25, it's only like 5 or 6 on Amazon right now. That means people should buy 5 books for the price of one.
And just, I honestly had the idea of like buying like 100 books, like of like 100 author copies, and just leaving them in random places in the street. So if you want to do me a solid, go buy them at this very cheap cost and just drop them off in random places. Somebody's gonna pick it up.
Hey, I'm with it. That's the type of grassroots things we on the banquet hall.
Oh yeah, grassroots move. That's how the artists have to do it, isn't it?
That's how we do it. But rounding out this podcast episode, just a few high level questions and just letting you cook as long as you want. First things first, I think that along the lines of the conversation of just what it means to put your work out there as a poet, I wanted to give space to talk about the importance of feedback when it comes to being a poet, and how, like, when people read your stuff, when people hear your stuff, that I think that, and Jada and I talked about this last episode, but we need a little bit more than a good job sometimes. Like what's a good job? So let's talk a little bit about the importance of feedback.
Man, it's so annoying, this topic, because I have very strong emotions around it. And the thing is, when I think of writing, and when I think of poetry, and I compare them to other forms of art, I don't believe that people support words and books the same way. People can look at an art painting and interpret it anyway, you know what I'm saying, and give their thoughts and feedback, but then when they read a poem, they're like, that was good, or I liked it. Okay. What about it? Like, what did you get from it? What did you hear? Did you like the cadence? Did you like the syntax, the diction? Like, what did you like? What was it? Did you like the words? Did you like the symbolism? Did you even get the message? Did it mean, how did
you even get the message?
Yeah, like, or if I had a specific message for me, was there a message for you? Did you take anything from it? Did it make you feel anything? People can look at art, can look at sculptures and feel something and want to cry, but the crazy thing about poetry is sometimes people won't feel anything unless they hear it. But how many folks are going out to open mic nights?
Talk about it. I got to host Black Expression later tonight. Let's talk about it.
How many, like, not often. And how many of y'all are supporting your friends that are performing at open mic nights? How many of y'all are buying their writing? How many of y'all are saying, hey, I'll read over that, the same way you would want somebody to read over a 10-page paper for you and give you edits? Like, you can't look at my little poem and just tell me how it might have made you feel, or what you might have got from it, or how you like feel or think. And I really appreciate having writer friends, you know what I'm saying? The only problem is, like, you can't always connect with them, and sometimes, like, sometimes you don't necessarily want to like connect and have like a writing workshop session. You just want somebody who is not a writer to be able to feel something and tell you what it is, like that they felt like you were able to speak to me and I don't do what you do. But I don't think people even like really give that emotion or energy to it to want, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
I feel like you don't even have the want to do it sometimes. And it's really frustrating and annoying because like you feel like sometimes you can feel unsupported even by people that you know, love, and care about you. Like I have friends that'll be like, I bought your book, but I didn't read it because I don't like reading. Okay, thank you for putting a little bit of money in my pocket, but that's not super helpful. You know what I'm saying? Or like, I'd like to do this thing on like my close friends where I'll be like, give me a word and I'll write you a piece. And I will like write pieces based off of the words friends will give me. And like, even the feedback, like, oh, thank you. I love this. Or I'm just like, y'all can't see, but I'm squeezing my head. And I'm like, I'm so glad you liked it. I'm so glad you liked it. I'm so glad you liked it. But like, you're not giving me anything. Like, I like reactions that are like, oh, that was sobering, or oh, that made me feel X, Y, and Z, or when you said this, that stood out. Like those kind of things are, because then it lets me know what should I keep doing. So even if I'm not talking about it from like the art aspect, I like to know what I'm working on, like, and like the technical aspect of like my writing structure. Do people like my longer pieces? Do people like the short pieces? Do people like the things where it's like, for example, my poem Still Here, I'm still here, period, or I'm still, comma, here, period. Like, do they care about the punctuation and how that ties into poetry? Like, do people care about the structure? Do people like story type of pieces more, the prose pieces? Do people like, what do you like about the writing? You're not telling me what it is. So how can I get better as an artist if you're not telling me as an artist what I should be doing? Okay. I'll get off my soapbox, but please, like, feedback is necessary in every aspect of our life. You know what I'm saying? We get feedback in relationships and friendships. We get feedback at work. Like, what makes somebody's art that is poetry any different? The same way people give feedback on songs. People listen to songs. People hear the lyricism. They'll stop like, ooh, that was a bar. The only time I get a reaction like that is if I'm speaking on an open mic night. You mean to tell? Because I mean, Kyler, you already know, like, we'll text each other. I'll be like, ooh, Kyler, when you said this in that poem, I felt it. What? You said that? I had to reread that part. But also, niggas don't be reading. Like, read a book. And you know what? Start with poetry, because that might be easy for you. If we're being for real. Kyler is cracking up. Y'all can't see, but he is cracking up.
Now we get more listeners on YouTube, so they can see why I'm cracking. But I'm cracking up because you're just filling my cup so much, like, because I just think about, like, because you mentioned it, like, I have like 6 poetry books out there, like 5 technically, but whatever. I have poetry books out there, and it's like the amount of people. It's like, oh yeah, I bought it, and I'll follow up like 3 years later, like, damn, did you ever read it?
Did you ever read it? Like so there was people that wanted me to. I had like 4 copies that I was just trying to get rid of, and I was like, I'll gift them out. And you know, I like to personalize them to the people that I know. So I believe I wrote in yours and other friends that bought things from me. So the 4 people I wrote, and in my head I'm like, did these niggas ever even open the cover? Did you even read the note that I left for you? Did you?
No, they didn't.
But hold on, because I need to repeat that, because I think some of these niggas are on my story, and I need them to know how I really feel for real. Let me repeat that for y'all real quick. Okay. Just out of curiosity, as I'm on this podcast, did any of you niggas read that book? Did any of y'all even open the cover of this? Did y'all even read the little notes that I left for y'all? See, the thing is, when you buy the book directly from me and I know you, I'ma sign it. And if you buy it from me and I don't know you, I'ma still sign it. But like my friends, I like to leave little notes or little things like before they dive into, you know, learning me a little bit more and hopefully getting to like dive into themselves. Did y'all even open it? Have y'all read it? Did y'all even see the parts on the cover that would have said something to you before you even gotten inside it for real? Did you even get to the preface? Oh, I skipped it. Did you even get to the preface? Anybody? I keep asking for feedback, and the crazy part is these niggas probably never even read the book. They probably never read the book. That's the crazy thing. I'm off of my soapbox now. Yes, we can continue.
This is the best podcast episode to ever exist. I am literally in tears just because, like, I'm just on the same wavelength with you. Because in Obsidian specifically, it's like probably like one of the last 10 pages of the book, but it's like a prompt to like write affirmations to yourself. And on all of my close friends' books that bought it from me directly, I wrote an affirmation for them on that page, but it's like 100-something pages into the book. So that's how I know when people don't read it, because like, oh, you ain't even text me when you got to that part of the book.
Oh, well, just know that I purchased Bloom this morning. I didn't forget.
Oh no, I know. I'm sending your book out.
I'm very curious to see where you gonna write it. I'm excited. But it's so crazy because Kyler, I still have to get through the other ones, so I know I have to I'm gonna keep Bloom for last, so I want to read in order. Well, I want to read in the order you told me to read it in. So
I did get. See, this is, yeah, you get me. That's important. But yes, I saw that you purchased the book.
Also, it's important to you non-writers and people that need to be reading. It's important that if you're reading like a book that, I know it's poetry and you can kind of jump around, but if you see there's a structure, the same way you don't go into a brand new album and you press shuffle
and just start at track 7.
Okay, I'm not about to go put on To Pimp a Butterfly and skip halfway through the album. Okay, no, I'm gonna start from the beginning because it's a story.
People starting at the interlude.
The least why would you start the interlude? Like, the least you could, sorry, I'm so hyped, but the least you could do is read it in order the first time so you can get the full effect, okay? The same way that, like, if we say that, this is X, Y, and Z, and this is what I'm kind of trying to get across, follow that. Try to tap into it. Before you go about your own business and just open up the book, oh yeah, I saw, cave diving? Damn, that's real depressing. Oh, well, maybe if I skip ahead, I'll find something. No. The book is about depression. The book is about depression. That's what it's about. So maybe you should understand the journey of the depression journey. I'm off my soapbox again.
That's the greatest soapbox of all time, because I'll never forget the first time I saw somebody, I gave them the book, they just cracked it open in the middle. I'm like, yo, what are you doing?
Like, do you open a novel and start the book halfway through the story? Be fucking for real, okay? You're not gonna open your textbook. I can't even say that because you already know academia is different. They'll assign chapters in different ways. So let me not. I'm not even gonna bring in academic books, but regular books, y'all are not jumping halfway through it. Okay, this is not this is not called a book of sad poems where you can skip around and find it. It's called shadow work, which means I obviously did the work, and I'm telling you the journey of the work. So follow said journey of the work. Then after you do that, I say go back and hop around and connect with the pieces that really touched you. You know what I'm saying? But I just feel like when you get a poetry book, you get something like that, it's best to follow it how you got it. You know what I'm saying? Especially if somebody's trying to convey something. But if it's just a collection, just a collection of like I have books that is like a book of love poems, I don't really care how I read that because it's just a collection.
Even though there's still a little meaning to how the collection is put together, but overall.
This, the screen. This is more than a collection. Kyler's books are more than collections. Okay, so when friends and non-friends and family and folk that may be listening to this podcast or watching it see in the future, please follow the book the first time, at least the first time, the same way you would follow a new album. Same way you would follow a new album.
Because who's going to the movie theater an hour and a half into the movie like, I want to start here?
Make it make sense.
Make it make sense. It don't. I love this soapbox. We could be on the soapbox for another hour. So I love the reading PSA. Second to last question. Upcoming poetry projects. I know we alluded to it. I know it's something that you're working on. Time is a social construct at the end of the day.
Time is a social construct.
But just in general sense, is there anything that you're working on that you want to share with the peoples?
Yeah. Book 2 is in the works or whatever. Shorty's trying to trying to tap into other emotions. The book is supposed to be a book of love. Um, I think one thing that I did struggle with as I've written was writing love poems,
Mm,
but more so in the sense of like happy and like really like hopelessly romantic, like I want to fall in love type poem stuff. I have gotten very comfortable with sad love poems. Um, and I think that's kind of like the thing around like this book is I don't know if I necessarily want it to be strictly like love poetry, like over romantic, but I think I want it to be more than that. But I do think I want it to like center like my journey of love because I think like shadow work, because it is my journey with like depression, I think it also ties into my journey of self love. And so I
mm,
feel like I kind of want to separate the two a little bit, but I do think self love plays a lot in like things like romantic love, like so I had a goal of like wanting to put it out by like Valentine's Day, but I didn't. Did I reach my poem number? I did. Like the cap that I wanted to get to. The problem is I feel like I need 100 more than the 100 that I already
mm.
have because I want to really find pieces that I think are really speaking the way that I want them to speak. Um and I think I also just need more experience in life. I think I've had a lot of experience with feeling bliss in love, but I think I've had way more experience with feeling hurt and sadness in love.
Mm.
And I think I don't want to put out something that I don't think is holistically speaking to me yet. Um,
Play that.
yeah, and I don't think I've written all the poems that I think should go in it yet. So I definitely think it's going to be a thicker. Oh, just dropped my nose ring. I think it's going to be a thicker book than Shadow than Shadow Work, but it's a little ghost. Oh, I don't know if you saw it. It's a little ghosty.
Mm.
You can't see it, anyways. um, yeah, I think it's gonna be a thicker book than Shadow Work because it's definitely gonna have more poems. But definitely stay tuned for it. Let's see where we are in another year. The title I'm dwelling on is "Due for Love." Um, but I'm debating just because like I'm still debating on like the preface of that book and what I've written already and um I'm gonna be on Kyler's nerves at some point as per usual. He's gonna be Coach Kyler at some point yet again, and always running my work by him. And yeah, I think once I really figure out the way that this book two is going, and I think I'm really comfortable with the pieces that are in there, and I think I get more of the pieces that I want to go in there. We will start talking about dates and covers and designs and all that good stuff. But right now we are just kicking, but it's coming. I have about 104
Sheesh.
poems right now. Yeah. Some that I think I'm just like kind of like half done pieces that I'm, dwelling on expanding or not. But yeah, heartbreak is a bitch. Heartbreak is one of the best inspirations, but I think I want to experience love so genuine and real and sincere that it's bigger inspiration than what pain feels like.
God
Like the
damn,
way
Donut.
I've written some beautiful, beautiful, heartbreaking poems, and I want to write something so fulfilling of love just as
Mm.
beautiful. Because I mean, there's beauty in pain, but like I want to experience mm, that cozy, warm feeling that makes a love poem a love poem. So
You
yeah.
have such a way with words. Like the people don't be knowing. The people don't be knowing, but just the beauty and the pain that you just described, like I don't think there's a better way someone can describe what a love poem is. Like I don't.
Stop. Thanks.
Hey man, like you talked about like all right, don't die on the podcast. This podcast would have the like literally the Hall of Fame blooper reel.
Oh my gosh, if you make a bloopers reel, that'd be so funny.
Just like how you describe it, because I mean, like you said, like you just purchased Full Bloom today. You're gonna read that, and that's right up the alley of what you're talking about, because there's some shit in Full Bloom that people ain't even reading.
Ooh, I can't wait to get there. That I think I need to make it like a point, because like one, I know that like I'm always like, oh, I need to read, and then I have like binge moments where like I read, and then like I have binge moments where I don't read. But I just need to be consistent and just sit down and just plan it. Like I need to read like a book a week, and I like for at least like a month or so straight. I want to read at least one Kyler book a week, finish them so I can, because I need to get to Bloom.
I don't recommend reading one Kyler book a week.
I mean, I'm not really reading anything else. So.
Hey, get your read on. Who am I to dictate how fast to read? This has been a fantastic episode, and my cup is so filled right now. I think the last thing that I want to leave the folks off on is just any general words of advice or shameless plugs that you have. I think that we gave out a lot of nuggets of wisdom. I don't know if people was taking notes or not, but I took a lot of mental notes. We especially for the writers out there, like I feel like we're speaking in code a lot of this episode, and they really get it. But the people who don't understand the code, they're getting a lot of nuggets of wisdom, and I'm really looking forward to how this episode might inspire others and ourselves, I would say, like just having this space to talk. Like I know I'm like wired up. I feel like after we hang up, I'm gonna write a poem and perform it tonight.
I was just thinking oh my gosh, Kyler. So at least I would say for me, this, because you hit me like I didn't expect it. I didn't expect it, but I think knowing that I've been trying to really tap into like my creativity lately, like one with like trying to record YouTube videos, not being super successful, but also wanting to just be, I don't know if you heard my cat back there. I got 2 new cats. RIP Obsidian, hello Onyx and Phantom. They are talking. Either way, side note. I've been hungry. I've been really hungry for writing. But I've been struggling to write lately, and I really think this podcast, this session, I mean, I know we have our check-ins like every month or other month or so, and that's feeding for me. But I think this really getting to focus on like the writing and talk about like our work and stuff like that, and talk about my work. I don't think I have had the chance to do that, at least, and not with people either. It's re-sparked that zeal. It's re-sparked that like, because even reflecting on my story I didn't realize how much I really, like, how they say the 10,000 hours makes you an expert. I didn't realize
put in time.
I've been putting in time and energy and effort and passion and my cerebrospinal fluid, okay? My blood, sweat, tears. Like, there have been days where I have cried over because I prefer writing like pen and paper, and I can't count how many times I've written that, and even written pieces of turning like tissue into paper, or what I'm saying, or being on a 2-hour bus ride to work and school and community college while I'm struggling and all this stuff, and it's raining and I'm sad and I'm overwhelmed, and the rain just made me write a poem. Like, I've really put in time and energy and lost sleep and put hours. Like, even when I think of like my novels, I used to put in 16-hour sessions. I was losing sleep. I was writing at work. I worked a retail job. I worked 30-hour, 40-hour weeks. I was writing on my phone. I was getting home and writing, and it consumed me, and I missed that hunger. And I think this podcast just refueled that for me, and I think I'm ready to like get back out there and pull out my phone and see what the hell I'm about to craft up as soon as we wrap this up.
Man,
I was like, I need to find me some open mic nights. I gotta get back in the game. I gotta make a name for myself. I gotta be out here, and I'm not out here. Honestly, if you're in San Diego, just know that San Diego is one of the best poetry scenes out there, one of the biggest poetry scenes out there. If you are looking to get into slam poetry, if you are looking to just listen, Rudy Francisco, okay. San Diego, okay? Listen, you wanna tap in with them, to tap in and really start your poetry, I don't want to say career, but you're like your life as a
Your
poet,
journey.
your
Yeah.
journey, tap in, because if there's one thing that I miss, I miss Black X. I miss flexing. Look, if y'all fly me out to be a, what, you feel me? What was it? What do we call them? Oh, it's been so long.
A feature?
A feature. You want to fly me out to be a feature? I miss the poetry scene so much that he just got me fired up. Wow, I've really been grinding in this. I didn't even know. Crazy.
And the people need to know, and I think that's why I wanted to do this podcast, like the podcast in general, but also like specifically like the podcast with you, is because I feel like I know so many people that we went to school with, so many people where we saw those long nights that they was putting in just to get where they at today, and it's like y'all niggas don't even know.
Like they don't even, like me and Jovi used to be up till 2-3 a.m. inside the village game room when it was a game room, and we were there, and I mean practicing, whether it was trying to get our movements in sync, whether it was syncing up with the words, making sure our inflections were correct. Like it's really training. And we're really out there grinding and putting in that time. So yeah, my shameless plug, at least for like the San Diego area, get out there, go get involved. It's so entertaining too. It's fun. Mm-hmm. Some people write fun poems. Some people write, ain't shit cool, like I'm the shit type poems. Like it's so fun and it's so black.
Black as hell.
And it's so black. Like I love it. And don't get me wrong, not everybody is black there, but I mean the energy is so, it just feels so cultured for us that it just makes sense. So yeah, you can find me Instagram, Twitter, follow me on YouTube. I don't know. Like I have not been uploading, but you're welcome to. I've been thinking about uploading my poetry to YouTube, actually, like speaking it out loud, but I don't really know how I want to perform them or like where I want to sit and set that up. So we'll see.
It takes so much thought, because I've had the same thought too. It's like, damn, I could really like perform some shit and like be on YouTube. I'm like, nah, like I gotta have a setting.
Right, but like those people that make like videos and like poetry over, like it's like in the captions. I think like I'm like, maybe I should do something like that. I just don't know how like I would structure it or stuff like that. So I think I need to find somebody creative and team up with them, somebody who's good at videos, and
figure out. That might be the next version of the Blue Poet Society and the Shades of Blue YouTube channel. Different poets feature. All right, we got too many nuggets on this episode, and I know we got days to get to.
Just dropping things for folks,
and they don't even know like. And it's like, that's the beauty of podcasts, because it's like people are going to hear this when it gets uploaded. Some people are going to listen fully through and whatnot, but nobody knows what we just created here except us right now. And I'm really excited to share that with people, because like I was saying, like that was the goal of this podcast, was to just give space for people to be able to talk about these journeys, because you can go on Twitter at any given time and learn about what all these celebrities are doing and whatnot. And I think that people, especially in this really interconnected world that we live in, people are so focused on what their journey is, and we're not even looking at like the journeys that are in our inner circle. And so you mentioned that this fueled you, so it was really affirming to hear that, because I think it just affirms the need for me to continue doing this, but also I think I needed to have this conversation.
You're killing it. If y'all don't know, like Nat nonsense, that's the jam. Okay, Kyler, what's your basketball?
The Hoop Dream Spot.
Hoop Dream Spot. Kyler is on fire, y'all. Like I'm big on. Thanks for giving me my flowers, but like Kyler is doing his thing. Please go listen to all of them. Honestly, Nat Nonsense is probably like my favorite, because I don't know, him and Andre, fantastic duo. I be dying laughing. I like listening to it, like with work. I don't feel so alone. I have ADHD and a short attention span, so I be like turning it on and off. But every time that I jump back in, I'm like, ah, that's what's funny. Then I get distracted. Then I tune back in. Ah, this was funny. And they be dropping gems there too. So yeah,
I appreciate that. But yeah, this podcast episode really fueled me too. Like I said, I'm ready for the open mic tonight. I'm ready to write. And that's what I hope for our listeners. I hope that y'all feel fueled to do whatever your it is, like whether you need to go out there and paint something, whether you need to create like a tea bag, if you need to do that yoga session, whatever your it is. I hope that you feel fueled to get out there and just remember all the hours you put in, because like you said, that 10,000 hour thing, that's something that business leaders talk about, that's stuff that athletes talk about. just think about how much time you actually put into what you're doing, and go make
And
it
because
go
I
make your it
never
happen.
reflected on this, like had you had not set this up, I probably would have never reflected on that. Honestly, like I don't really think about. I try not to reflect on the past too much. It's kind of hurt. It hurts.
Says the poet.
Right, it hurts. But yeah, I think you really shined a light, helped me shine a light on myself. So thank you. That felt really good.
Yeah, it's felt excellent. Can't wait for your mentor to hear this and all the people who support you. Thank you for saying yes to being on, listeners. Thank y'all for listening in and tapping in. Make sure y'all follow. You didn't even give your ad. You told them to follow you,
I
but
did, and my at is my first name, Tenomewah, Tenomewah. Please remember, do not call me it because you don't know me like that, unless you're my friend, like Kyler. Please refer to me as Lynette, but yes, my at is my first name. It's the same thing for Twitter, Tenomewah. Yeah, I just be talking my shit and doing how I do when I does it. And you could also find me on YouTube at the same thing. Ain't nothing up yet though, but follow me anyways.
yeah, prepare for it because it's coming. That's what they're
I
doing. They're
mean,
preparing for it.
okay. I'm trying to become a little it girl or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Baby mommy. Baby mommy on the you feel me? You feel me?
I'm a full supporter. And listeners, make sure, of course, y'all follow Banquet Hall Pod on Instagram, Twitter, follow the YouTube at Banquet Hall Pod, and we will catch y'all next episode.
We will. Much gratitude.